This is IBM Museum. I still have that 5394 open on the bench behind me. And one of the things that sparked some interest in the previous video was the size of the power supply. And I took a flashlight, kind of looked inside through the openings, and was surprised to see that, as you can see with this camcorder picture, that the insides of that PSU are mostly a void. I mean, it has enough room in there for probably another couple of these boards that are in the back here. And the, in fact, I can probably go through and let me see if I'll hide my webcam just to kind of show the full view here as I get rotating and moving things around. Um, I did go through and research a little bit. I wanted to see if I could find any other pictures of 5394s that were online. And I was aware of another unit I've seen the inside of that was similar to this. But eBay, of course, was a good source that I thought of for other 5394 units. And on one listing, it showed this picture of the insides, and I was amazed at just that there's not any broken tabs on this plastic. I mean, it looks the ribbon cable of the diskette drive looks a little bit dirty, but I can't really fault the seller for that. It does show the same size of power supply, but it has a different sort of um, PCB that's in there. The connections look to be the same place on the back, the Twin X and that DB25 port. But this power supply has wires coming out the side, much like a conventional power supply would have. It still does have some of the stickers on the top there. The one in particular towards the top is that triangle warning of 450 volts. And I'm not really sure what that's about. The other yellow sticker, um, I actually have that on the inside of my power supply, and there's another sticker that's also a warning that's stuck on the inside of the power supply. I guess that's back when things were serviceable. They didn't try and keep you out. It was normal bits to get in, those 3 screws to get into the power supply. I don't really think they changed the lid at all. The one comment I did make in reply is there's a lot of venting on that cover, and the that doesn't seem like it reduced at all. For the unit I have, I still am amazed for there seems to be some discolorization or some dust that's carried through um, to the underside of the plastic top. Um, and that's normally when things get warm and things like that. The fumes of that power supply could be carried. But this picture here from the eBay auction has a fan in it. Actually even has the PCB underneath a metal piece. Looks like they're enclosing it and even blowing air onto that PCB for cooling. The power supply itself doesn't have any fan to it. I've not even seen in this older version of the PSU with the wires coming out the side anything that would where there would be a fan mounted on the inside of this. And the other thing I noticed too is that there is of course they showed a picture of the front, and it's got the big button floppy. 1.44 megabytes still, but it's that 40 pin edge connect drive, as we see here in the back, and that cable routed down to the planer. And it's all a 1.44 megabyte diskette drive all the same, just as my version has. Um, but they changed diskette drives, they changed the PSU, they changed that PCB in there, even pulled out the need for a fan with this smaller PCB that's on there now. And in fact, I'll go through. I'm still going to conceal my webcam as I go through just to show the back of that other diskette drive. And that was the 34 so-called pin connect drives. And it has power on the data on that style of connector to that diskette drive. And the diskette drive is still enclosed in a lot of metal. And I'm not really sure about that at all, because the PCB towards the back with the twin X connections, that doesn't have any sort of shielding that's around it at all. It's just a plastic top that's above that. And of course, this version has that conventional 72-pin SIM in there as well. Now, the other oddity, in addition to just that the power supply being so far reduced, that circuit on the inside of this, that on the side, and see, here's my, well, I guess it does have it's got that 450 volt triangle warning, and then it's got the label that we saw before, even another label on the inside of that, a label still on the inside of the power supply, and of course here for the power supply, then it has the mains voltage that's coming off that socket, carried, the wires carried in a rail to go to the back of the toggle switch for power. So it does switch on and off mains to get power. And in this instance, maybe it's more visible as I kind of rotate things around, as I will. Oh, and it's still the there is still the loop for the power wires coming out of that PSU that are still on this enclosure. And this enclosure, I mean, it's even pop riveted to a metal base. Has all this metal that's around underneath the PCB, underneath the drive platform. This is a heavy stock of metal. Of course, nothing underneath there at all, and except for the connections and just a half of the back, this diskette drive is fully enclosed in that metal, and of course, except for the front as well. Now, the other angle I was going to show is what kind of attention is that the side of the power supply has a marking for the model number and then the serial number on there, a sticker, and that matches the serial number that is on the front of the unit too. And so that's just weird for me, having a internal component like that. And I guess this is part of the frame to most of it. It's all pop riveted together. But having the serial number identifier on the inside as well. So this is a a real oddity. And I think my other 5394 is much the same. I think it even has a higher number, serial number. And there's that label on the inside of the power supply, just warning that the line voltage is always present. I guess they're not counting in the case where it's unplugged. Um, and likely a switching power supply by how it's set up in here. Um, this is new enough. These units I think were produced. This one maybe even later in like 1991, maybe 30 years ago. I'd have to look at some of the date codes and things like that if I could kind of estimate um, that time frame. But yeah, the power supply is a much smaller PCB inside, and then it actually feeds and this is kind of neat. This is almost like a Model 50 or 70, where it has these edge connectors that go in, and there's a drop down from the power supply circuit board um, that goes in. I was going to go through and I thought of even going through and pulling the PCB. It'd just be um, number of screws. It's all the same screws as the power supply. And let me see how that may come out. And I'll try and go kind of sideways with it, and I don't want to break any of these plastic retaining clips for the PCB on the back. Just have to look on how my video is doing. I wanted to look at those edge connectors, and it's marked out for the voltages of like 5 and 12 volts. Okay. And of course, as I say, this plastic is very brittle, and I'm to the limits kind of what that is, how that's pop riveted together. So that's interesting. If whether you have to pull the circuit board for the power supply effectively out, or if you have enough slack on that one side, basically to get that mating connector in the middle for power connected between the two of them. And it's marked as it's odd that one of those screws is a different color than the others, but it's marked for the power connections that are there, the traces. So they've gone just that very simple, and they're doubling up some of the traces and everything there. There's on the, try and get it to focus on the autofocus of the camcorder there, and that seems to be having a hard time with that big metal flange coming up. But that's the power connection that's on that newer style of PCB. I don't necessarily have to put all this back together on video, but I just thought I'd show a little bit of that layout of how that is for the old and new style. And again, new style is showing there, and there's the old style. And so if you show my wiring mess off to the side, if I could see my indicators of what my sources are. But I mean, that's just a deeper inside view there. And so if you enjoy this content, click on that like button, please, and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.